everybody, this is Scott Allen Miller. Today on Sam IT, we're going to look at how stateful and stateless systems are affected when it comes to backups. Now, this is interesting. In the former world, when everything was stateful, we had to back up everything. And this is where the concepts of just taking a backup of the entire system, grabbing every file you possibly could, was important because the things that mattered all interconnected and everything was stateful, and we just needed to be able to recover everything at a moment's notice. That's how we used to live, and that mentality has carried forward, but in the modern world, that's not necessarily going to be true nor apply to us. When we're thinking about stateless systems, for example, and a great example of this would be an application server, in many cases there's no need to take a backup of it at all, and you can tell this pretty simply by asking, if I needed to build a new one of these, do I need to recover from a backup? Do I need to go somewhere and manually rebuild it, or can I press a button and simply get a new one? And with a lot of cases, especially when we're dealing with DevOps systems and automated build and virtualization, especially cloud and systems like that, quite often things like our application servers might be able to be built without any interaction and without grabbing any state from like a backup recovery system. Basically, a build system can completely create what we need, and we need nothing from a backup system to restore data. That's how we know we're truly stateless. And I have a lot of systems like this, even in my own world, even in the SMB. For example, my big application servers, I have a script that is hosted on their cloud server. When I build them, I simply tell them that they are a member of that group. That script applies, and it builds the server automatically. It requires absolutely no intervention from me. I can just say I need a new one, and 15 minutes later, I'm already logged in and using it. I don't need to do anything. I don't have to restore anything, and I can have as many copies of that as I want. That is stateless in exactly the way that you want it to be. I then also have stateful systems. I have file servers and databases, and those things, absolutely, I cannot just have a build system build them. Yeah, the database would be there. Even maybe the files, like the empty files that I need might be there. But the actual data that I'm trying to use is gone. Things like, my financial data and my customer data and, documents I've been making, those would all be just gone. You can't make an empty file server and be like, well, good enough, you have an empty file server. You need the files. Those systems need to be backed up. But if we're building the system that hosts those files in a stateless way so that at least we can have that empty shell like I was describing, and all we need to do is restore the files to it, we can, even with stateful systems, we can start thinking about backups as not needing to be as complete as they were in the past. Traditionally, like I said, we would back up the entire system, the operating system, the applications, absolutely everything. But if I can automate the installation of the operating system, automate the installation of all the needed applications and configuration, and make that happen automatically, I can start looking to back up only database files or only the file server, actual files, documents that I'm hosting, and I can dramatically reduce the size of my backups. Most of the time, traditionally, the master size of our backups was determined by all the cruft that we were backing up, all the patches and cache files and the actual operating system, things that there's no reason to back up because we can recreate them in a few seconds from automated systems. We don't need 100 copies of the same operating system, and especially because in many cases we don't want to restore all that stuff. What if we were infected at some point with malware and it got in through something that we later patched? Well, we want to start with a freshly patched system instead of having that malware be brought back in from a backup system. So changing how we look at backups to not back up stateless systems at all and to back up only the files and data, such as the databases, that we care about from stateful systems, not only makes our backups faster, smaller, cheaper, but it also stops us from accidentally backing up a whole bunch of things we don't want to, so that we have a better chance of going to pristine states and protecting ourselves from a security perspective. Plus, of course, our ability to restore is dramatically faster. If we only need to back up 1 terabyte of data instead of 2 terabytes of data plus cruft, that means that we're able to restore potentially in half the time. Our backup systems don't have to deliver as much to us. And in a world where we want to do both on-site and often off-site backups, reducing the size of those backups is important because we need to push it over our WAN pipe, and many times the size of that backup versus the WAN pipe can be a bottleneck and a pretty significant choke point. Anything we can do to change that is pretty significant. In my own world, we have noticed that by switching to this, we have managed to eliminate something like 95% of our total backup size. Almost everything we were backing up was operating systems and applications rather than our data, all things that should be stateless, and if we approach them correctly, are stateless. And now we've gotten to that point where even if we have to manually recreate some systems that have not been fully automated, they are still able to be repeatedly built back to the state that they need to be in, and they don't require us to restore anything, and that way we know that they're stateless. Thanks for joining me. Remember to like and subscribe. How are you looking at your backups? Are you starting to consider statefulness and statelessness as part of your backup strategy? Is it changing how you approach your backups? Are you still looking at using the same kinds of agents and even the agentless, like platform level tools to back up everything on a virtualization host all at once? Or are you starting to look at more dedicated tools, things that may only back up the emails from an email server, only the database files from your database server, and get very, very small, tight backups, often using tools that are not even initially designed for backups? I want to know how this is affecting you, and I want your questions below. Talkadillo is a cloud-hosted or fully managed on-premises IP PBX platform providing businesses with simple and simply affordable voice communications. Visit Talkadillo.com and learn more about how Talkadillo can change how you view your telephones and help to support Sam IT.